It's just this simple. When someone is really able to take water, break it down into hydrogen and oxygen, and use it in a significant, safe, reliable, and certifiable way to power our cars, not to mention boats, trucks, and trains, by even, say, 30% or more, this will be a game changer for energy consumption around the world. Well, an inventor in Southern California has done exactly that, and CleanTekTV set out to verify his claims. The inventor, the vehicles, the claim.
This particular car came to us and it had 160,000 miles on it. And we've been able to almost double the fuel economy on the road with our system on it.
Let's let Arnie show us how his system works.
What we got here is a 2-unit reactor, one of the earlier systems that was developed. And we've got the reactors themselves. We got the storage tank of water, which is always kept above the water line to keep the reactors flooded. Here's our power supply that puts the power into the reactors. And once we have the reaction that we're looking for, the gas will come out of this hose. With the system on, there's the response that we're getting now. And what's coming out of there is a usable fuel supplement in the way of hydrogen and oxygen, but not together. Let me add just a little bit of soap to capture the bubbles. What's happening is the soap is coating the bubbles so they stay intact. And this is what I'm going to illustrate is the flame speed. I'm going to set off an explosion in my hand that'll demonstrate what this system does. See the bubbles? Okay? And it's just that simple.
In fact, the Boyle's transverter has been installed and road tested for quite some time.
My name is Charlie. I'm from Newport Beach, California. We purchased this product about 2 years ago, I would say. And it's gone through a few incarnations and great improvements since then. It produces between 25 to 33 liters a minute of hydrogen. Basically, the way that it works is there's water in the water tank, a small water tank, which comes down into the water manifold and into the bottom of the hydrogen reactors. Inside the reactors there are electrodes, and using electricity from the alternator of the car via the battery, it cracks the water molecule into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen rises to the top and flows across the reactors, and it comes back into the bottom of the water tank. The reason for this is sometimes a certain amount of steam can be developed in the reactors. The water that's in the tank sucks the water molecules out of the steam. So nothing but hydrogen and oxygen rises to the top of the tank. Then it comes out the top of the tank and it goes up to the front and into the air duct on the engine. There are no changes to the engine. This is a hydropulse generator. And basically what it does, well, it does a few things, but it reduces the load on the alternator and the battery. It takes a sampling of the amperage off of the alternator via the battery in a certain frequency in milliseconds and stores it. And then it releases it into the reactors at a different frequency in milliseconds. What this gives it the opportunity to do is it reduces the load on the alternator and the battery of the car by about 2/3, while at the same time tripling the amperage output into the reactors. So each reactor requires about 10 amps to run it. So here we have a 30 amp system. If I did not have this, I would be drawing 30 amps off of the alternator. But because I have this, I'm only drawing 10 amps off of the alternator. But I'm delivering triple the output, so I'm delivering 90 amps, or 30 amps each, into the reactors. Well, that's way too much. With that kind of amperage, you'll be producing practically nothing but steam. So there's an adjustment on this so that we can dial it back so that we don't create a steam problem. So we can maximize the amount of hydrogen being produced. We can minimize the load on the alternator and the battery of the vehicle. And we can maximize the amount of hydrogen being delivered into the engine in that way. Basically, that's what this does. Now, there's one other function that this does that's rather unique, and it's called throttle by wire. This little tiny green wire here, I don't know if you can see it or not, that goes up to the electronic accelerator on the car, so that when you accelerate, it puts more amperage into the reactors and produces more hydrogen. Conversely, when you decelerate, it reduces the amperage to the reactors and produces less hydrogen. So that basically the engine is only getting what the engine requires to run at whatever speed you want to run at.
So what are the results?
In running this system, mileage has increased significantly. This car gets consistently over 105% increase in mileage. I'm more than doubling my mileage on the vehicle.
But what about performance?
The Mercedes C280 sort of has had the reputation of being a banana slug on the highways. Not much get up and go, not much power. But with the hydrogen, it basically increased the power by probably over a third. When you hit the accelerator on this car, it gets up and goes.
Our system is set up here to where the gases will come out of here, go out through the filtering system and into the engine. This particular cab runs as a baseline anywhere from 10 to 12 miles per gallon in the city. With our system on it, we get anywhere from 15 to 20 miles per gallon. And it takes an old tired engine like what's in these cars and makes them burn clean, so it not only helps the environment as far as clean air is concerned, but it increases the fuel economy substantially. All the feedback that I've had from the driver plus the owner of the cab has all been positive.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the driver for the taxi experiment. I'm glad to be a part of it. I've been driving 25 years. I did some of the natural gas when we first started in Orange County, and very happy to be testing out the hydrogen program. From what I've seen so far, it's impressive from what we were hoping. You know, most of the taxis are running 14 miles to the gallon and they're sluggish, and with this one now it's already getting close to maybe 18, 19, 20 miles per gallon, and they're still not finished with tweaking it. Taxis normally would go maybe 100,000 miles after the police use them. Most taxis come out from a police auction and somewhere in the range of 75,000 miles. At 163, maybe near the end of its life cycle. But right now this one's strong, it's going good and fast on the acceleration, and you know, I was racing a pickup truck yesterday on the freeway, so no problem at all. So this one still does about 125, no problem at all on the freeway, but you didn't hear me say that.
Hi, my name's Jamie Norick. I've been dealing with Arnie Boyle for approximately 5 years or so. I have a Ford F-150 Super Crew with a 4.6 liter V8. I've ridden motorcycles all my life, which you got to work on them, and my father used to build boats, so I've been around engines pretty much all my life. We did a test in my truck We put a temporary system in to see how it would react with this particular vehicle. We did a road test. We drove from Costa Mesa to Glen Helen State Park and back. As we drove up there, we drove up with the unit off, and then when we drove back, we drove with it on. When we did this, we checked the mileage, and we found that on the way up with the system off, we were getting approximately 12 miles to the gallon. When we got up to Glen Helen, we turned the system on, drove back, and checked the mileage, and we were getting approximately 21 to 22 miles per gallon. This was my experience with the HHO and the system that Arnie Boyle designed. As far as installation goes, it's as simple as installing a stereo, a car stereo. It's just a matter of finding a place to mount the certain components and running the wires to the fuse box, and just pretty much standard installation. The thing's pretty straightforward. There's no moving parts. All you have to do is minor maintenance, keep filling up the water bottle, and drive your car. Simple as that. Most people have a hard time believing it, but I've seen it with my own eyes, signed a testimonial. I know that it works.
But we keep hearing that the reason cars can't run on hydrogen is because they can explode. Well, that's true. If you have to transfer the hydrogen and store it in tanks.
Well, some people are afraid of hydrogen. When they hear hydrogen, the first thing they think of is things blowing up. Totally not the case. All you're doing is creating a hydrogen gas on the fly. It only creates the gases as it's needed. As far as an explosion goes, it's nothing like hydrogen fuel cell cars that require a container. For one, they're very expensive, the containers themselves, and if they do rupture, it's going to be a bad day for a lot of people.
Details about what triggered a massive explosion at an alternative energy company in Sylmar. Eyewitness News has obtained exclusive video of the aftermath of that blast.
This explosion has similarities to a fatal explosion that happened in Simi Valley just over a year ago. Now, the cause of yesterday's blast here in Sylmar is under investigation. Bob Williamson was shown by Larson, he says, the process they were using here to derive hydrogen fuel from water.
This system, that's not possible because it only creates a hydrogen as you're driving. So there's very minimal amount. It's only creating enough hydrogen as the engine needs it. There's no high pressure. The system creates approximately a pound to a pound and a half of PSI to the engine, as well as the vacuum from the engine just doing what it normally does. It just free flows right to the engine, and there's no high pressure. The chance of an fatal explosion is nil. It just operates like it should. So it's safe, durable, just needs to be minorly maintained.
So we now have a real-world installable device that meets the criteria and is installable in many states and countries around the world, and it cleans up the air as well. We took a Boyle transverter installed car to a certified California smog test station. So how'd it do?
Okay, the car is passed the inspection per manufacturer specification. We run 2-speed idle test, and here is the result. Maximum allowance by the state for this typical vehicle. Hydrocarbon is 100 per pavilion, 0.10. Measurement came out from the tailpipe 0.01. Compared with the normal cars, the reading from the tailpipe, as per our measurement, came very clean tailpipe, and this is considered for the state an excellent clean air result.
And what's next for Arnie Boyle and his hydro transverter?
I see the applications on this technology in the area of twofold: fuel economy and helping clean up the environment because of what this system does to an internal combustion engine. What our system does, because of the flame speed of the gases that we bring together, have more of a complete burn. So if you're burning all that energy in the engine, your fuel economy goes up, your pollution goes way down, and it's a win-win for everybody. I see this system being applied to the marine industry. I see this system being applied to the on-road big trucking industry, and anything that has an internal combustion engine, diesel engines, period. At some point in the near future, I see the fossil fuel becoming an additive to the hydrogen instead of the other way around. There you're going to see fuel economies go through the roof. I think it's definitely doable. In the early days of this adventure, if you want to call it that, I've been involved in this thing for almost 8 or 9 years now. In my early days, I went down to the port of LA and knocked on the door and told them my name was Arnie Boyle and I got this widget that would do this, this, and this. They said, yeah, prove it. So I go back and I get myself a standalone generator set, a gen set, that's on a small trailer, which is a diesel engine with a generator. I take it back down there to the port of LA and knock on the door and say, hey, I'm back, this is what I got. They send out their engineers, and I wish I'd have had this on camera, is that these 3 engineers come out and they stick their finger up the exhaust pipe and they come up with 3 clean fingers. They're sitting looking at each other. The guy might have something, so they point to a gantry crane at the port that was red tagged by the Air Resources Board. They couldn't run it anymore. They says, put it on that. We put it on that. In a very short period of time, that was the cleanest crane in the port. We ran down there for 6 months. That crane had a major increase in power, and when that crane was running, that the flappers on the stacks were standing straight up and there was nothing coming out. You couldn't see any exhaust coming out of those big diesel engines that belch ugly black soot. None, zero, it just wasn't there. With the Air Resources Board, I had to have an executive order to be able to sell this thing off-road. I went through probably, say, $75,000 to $100,000 getting third-party testing with verified test labs, getting the thing done. And it took about 6 months worth of hiccups and failures and everything else to finally get through CARB. And CARB finally says, okay, Arnie, here's your executive order. You can go sell it now. They didn't tell me that I needed a verification where it could be utilized as a pollution control device, because it was a very strong competitor in that field. Oh, by the way, that'll be another $150,000. I don't have deep pockets and money don't grow on trees. So I took it as best I could, the way I could, to go through the evolution of getting the thing developed. At that time, with the product I had at that time, can't come close to the product that we have now. I have a smaller system, much, much more powerful, and ready to take it back to the marketplace. So that's why we're looking for verification money now. If I can get a verification of this thing, that means that like the trucking industry at the port, they'll demand or require all those trucks that go into the port to have this product on it to clean up the air pollution, because they've spent millions and millions of dollars down there trying to make a truck burn clean. Even to the point they've impounded trucks, they've red tagged because they're not clean. Our device will do it. But again, you got to come up with the dollars to get the verification done. Here again, the California Air Resources Board only governs the state of California. We can sell them now in Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, or any place in the United States. In other states, I mean, you got to look at who's the biggest consumer of fuel. The trucking industry is huge. With our system, because it's modular, I can do anything from a lawnmower to a diesel locomotive. I've engineered the system. For the first marketplace we're looking at is the taxi cab industry, mainly the Crown Victoria Ford. And I've set the system up where it's modular now, where you can take out the water system intact, you can take out the reactors intact, and you can take out the electronics intact. So in doing that and having all that stuff assembled accordingly, install will take you 2 or 3 hours. And we can probably pull the price down almost in half. From where we're at right now with the subcontractors I've got in line, people to handle the production of this thing, we're probably about 60 days away once I have the funding in place to have a product ready for the marketplace. But when we get ready to go after the regular on-road market, you're going to have to make a kit that'll fit each engine or each automotive family, be it Toyota or be it Ford or whatever. The reactors themselves are all standard and they're modular and they can be expanded upon. I can do anything from, like I said, a lawnmower to a diesel locomotive. The area that's gray right now that we have to get around is the computer interface for different models of vehicles. And once we can get around that, the product can be adapted to any car. This is one of the computer interfaces that we're working with and currently testing. And what this does, it communicates with the onboard fuel injection computer and gives it the right signals to allow the hydrogen to do its job. It's also fan cooled. It comes with its own digital readout as far as the amount of amps going through the system, all fully adjustable. The cases that we worked through it so far and we found out that it works well, that's the Crown Victoria. Basically it's the Ford fuel injection computer. I had a Lincoln Navigator, which is also Ford, that the system worked very well on without any type of a computer interface. We took the mileage from that from something like 12 to 14 miles per gallon to 22 miles per gallon. And I ran it for 3 years. When I sold the vehicle, it had 300,000 miles on it with only 1 set of spark plug changes. This is what it does. All day long. It's as simple as that.
This is Sidney Wildsmith with CleanTekTV. I'm a believer.